Hey guys, so I am back. We are about halfway through chapter 15, and it's going to take this session and another session to get to the end of chapter 15. So we are going to keep reading today and keep learning about all the new things that William is learning during his time at TED Talk. So remember, last time he learned what Google was and he learned what the internet was, and that was a really big new thing that he learned. So we're going to find out about some other things that he's learning about too. Tom helped me set up my own email account, and for the next week, he introduced me to a range of technology: smartphones, video and 35mm cameras, even an iPod Nano, which I turned over and over in my hand before finally asking, "Where is the battery?" Not long after, I'd be hacking into iPods and iPhones and repairing them for people. But the most amazing thing about TED wasn't the internet, the gadgets, or even the breakfast buffets with 3 kinds of meat, plus eggs and pastries and fruits that I dreamt about each night. It was the other Africans who stood on stage and shared their visions of how to make our continent a better place. So I want you to pause and think about that for a second. What was the most amazing thing about being at the TED conference? It wasn't the stuff. It wasn't the buffets with food, which, he'd been through a famine. So seeing all that much food in one place was probably amazing. It was the other Africans who stood on stage and shared their visions. That was the most amazing thing about TED. There was Corneille Luongo, a biologist from Congo who'd risked his life to save endangered animals during the country's civil war. He'd even buried his Land Rover engines and stashed lab equipment in the trees to hide them from the rebels. A man from Ethiopia invented a kind of refrigerator that works using water evaporation from sand. Others were doctors and scientists using creative ideas and methods to fight AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. Even Eric Hersman was there, one of the first people, along with Mike McKay, to write about my windmill on his blog, Afrigadget. Eric was raised in Kenya and Sudan as the son of missionaries. What he said summed up our crowd perfectly. Where the world sees trash, Africa recycles. Where the world sees junk, Africa sees rebirth. I'm going to say that one more time. That means it's important. Where the world sees trash, Africa recycles. Where the world sees junk, Africa sees rebirth. As far as my presentation went, when I heard Chris Anderson, the host's name, call my name, my legs refused to work. "Don't worry," Tom whispered, squeezing my shoulder. "Just take a deep breath." My heart beat fast like a Maganda drum as I climbed the steps to face the audience, which totaled about 450 people. All the inventors and scientists and doctors who'd shared their stories and ideas the previous days. They were now watching me. When I reached the stage and turned around, I went completely blind. Lights from the ceiling were shining into my eyes, so bright I couldn't think. All the words I prepared seemed to dance to the drum and get lost in the glare. "We've got a picture," said Chris. He pointed to something behind me, and a giant photo of my parents' house appeared. I saw the mud brick walls, grass roof, bright blue sky. I could feel the sun. "Where is this?" he asked. "This is my home. This is where I live." "Where? What country?" "In Malawi, Kasungu," I said, then quickly corrected myself. Kasungu, Malawi." My hands began to shake. "5 years ago, you had an idea," Chris said. "What was that?" "I want to make a windmill." Chris smiled. "So what did you do? How did you realize that?" I took a deep breath and gave it my best. "After I drop out from school, I went to library and I get information about windmill. Keep going, and I try and I made it." I expected the audience to laugh at my silly English, but to my surprise, all I heard was applause. Not only were they clapping, but they were standing and cheering. And when I finally returned to my seat, I noticed that several were even crying. After all the years of trouble, the famine, and the fear for my family, dropping out of school, Kamba's death, and the teasing I received trying to develop my idea, I was finally being recognized. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was surrounded by people who understood what I did. A huge weight seemed to leave my chest and fall to the assembly hall floor. I could finally relax. I was now among colleagues. So I want you to think about that word colleagues for a minute, because a colleague is usually someone who's like on the same level as you. So like Mrs. Dematzis and myself and Mrs. Perna, we're colleagues. We're all teachers, right? So he's saying that he's around other people that are kind of at his same level that he thinks of as being colleagues. For the next couple of days, they lined up to meet me. William, can I take my photo with you? William, please join us for lunch. One line from my presentation even became a kind of motto for the conference. Everywhere I went, people shouted, I tried and I made it. I was so flattered. I wished my parents, Gilbert and Jeffrey, had been there to see it. They would have been proud. When I first met Tom, he asked what I hoped to obtain someday in my life. I told him I had two goals: to remain in school and to build a bigger windmill to irrigate my family's crops so we'd never go hungry again. Basically, this was every Malawian's wish, but Tom seemed confident, and over the next several days, he approached many of his friends and colleagues at the conference and asked for their help. By the time it was over, he'd raised enough money to get me started. I'm so grateful to everyone who assisted me, and I pray that God blesses them all. After the conference, Tom flew back to Malawi to meet my family and to help me enroll in a better school. When the taxi turned onto the dirt road toward my house, the windmill appeared in the distance, looking so beautiful. As usual, its blades were spinning fast and causing the tower to sway back and forth. It's more than functional, Tom said. William, this is art. I gave him a tour of the compound, showing him the car battery and bulb. He laughed at the pile of radio and tractor parts in the corner of my room. I think every great inventor has a pile of junk someplace, he said. I also demonstrated the light switches, circuit breaker, and the way I'd waterproofed my bulb outside. For the porch light, all I had were Christmas lights. So I hollowed out regular incandescent bulb and wired the Christmas lights inside. The shell served both as a weather protector and diffuser. There's more to this than I thought, Tom said. I just laughed. I hadn't even told him about the famine. Back in Lilongwe, Tom and I visited the offices of Baobab Health. Remember, that's where that person works. Located on the grounds of Kamuzu Central Hospital, to see Soyapi and finally meet Mike McKay. Baobab was founded in 2000 by a British-American computer scientist named Jerry Douglas, who'd invented a new kind of software to help Malawi hospitals register and treat patients more effectively. Jerry was out of town at the time of our visit, so Mike and Soyapi gave us the tour. Mike started by showing me a small windmill kit they were hoping to use to power a village clinic. Its generator was a treadmill motor, which I'd never seen. He stuck a power drill in one end of the motor to make it spin, and then took two wires and attached them to a voltmeter, an amazing gadget. The voltmeter measured the motor's power at 48 volts, which was 4 times stronger than my dynamo. What do you think? Mike asked. Yeah, it's cool. He then gave them both to me as a gift. Oh, thank you, I said. The hole in heaven just kept getting wider. Mike and Soyapi also introduced me to deep cycle batteries. Compared to my car battery, they provide a more stable amount of current for longer periods of time. I wanted to try one of these, so Tom and I went to the offices of Solaire, a local solar power dealer. We bought 2 batteries and 4 solar lamps, along with energy-saving bulbs and materials to rewire my entire compound. Workers arrived at my village the following week, and for 3 days, we replaced old wiring, dug trenches to bury cables, and installed proper light fixtures and plugs, though I kept my old flip-flop switches, just for fun. With quality wire, a plastic conduit, and buried lines, we never had to worry about fires again. I also stuck a lightning rod on the top of the windmill, just in case. Once it was finished, there was a bulb for every room, including 2 outside. I also installed solar panels on my roof to help store the electricity when the wind wasn't blowing. These days, every home in my village has one of these panels, complete with a battery to store power. With each home lighted, the compound finally glowed at night. So I want you to think about what his goals were, what he said earlier about how it would look like stars in the sky if everyone in his compound actually had electricity. One of his goals was to do that. So he managed to bring that to that entire little part of his village. So that's pretty important. That is it for us. We are going to finish off chapter 15 and the book next time we meet. Go answer the questions in Google Classroom. Have a great day.